In a world of challenges and uncertainties, hope shines as a beacon, guiding us through the dark times and showing us the way to brighter days ahead. But what exactly is hope? Where does it come from? And how does it shape our lives? I'm Annie Bennett, and I'd love you to join me on this journey as I explore the meaning of hope. I'll delve into philosophical perspectives, personal stories, and scientific insights to understand the power of this elusive emotion. So whether you're seeking inspiration, comfort, or simply a deeper understanding of the human spirit, let's embark on this exploration together and discover the extraordinary power of hope. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Chronicles of Hope podcast. Oh, I have a fabulous guest with me today and I can't wait to get chatting to find out what she's all about. I have with me today Becca Scott, who is a homeopath and a coach. But that doesn't really cover what she does, I think. I think we need to dig deeper with Becca. So welcome, Becca. It's lovely
Oh,
to have you here.
thank you so much for having me on. And I just, honestly, you're a joy. I always
Oh,
say this,
bless
you're
you.
a joy to be around. You just make me smile. So
Oh,
thank you.
bless you.
Thank you.
I'm all about the happiness, you know
Oh,
me.
I know. I love it. I love it. On a rainy day, I love it.
Right, so let's get to the bottom of Becca Scott then. So,
Okay.
you describe yourself as a homeopath and a coach, but I know there's far more to it than that.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us your story and how you came to be doing what you're doing and a little
Yeah.
bit about what you do?
So basically, what I do now is I support women with their gynecological, hormone, and autoimmune health. And a lot of those people I work with have toxic relationships in their life. So it's not just intimate partners, it can be mothers, siblings, bosses, because actually there's a lot of difficult, toxic people in the world.
Mm,
Um, and often those relationships lead to their health issues. So that's a
mm,
weird concept, perhaps for some people, but as a homeopath, we're looking at what's the root cause of an illness. So symptoms are a sign that the body is struggling, and it's finding out why is that? What's the
mm,
struggle? What's going on? Um, and I'm also an accredited divorce and breakup coach. So I have been I started as a reflexologist 25 years ago, and I've worked around the kids. And then I became a homeopath 20 years ago when my eldest son, who's now 21, had eczema. And I knew that I wanted to do things differently, a bit natural.
mm,
Um, and then lockdown happened. And well, amongst between all of that, a really very difficult divorce happened.
mhm,
Um, then lockdown happened, and I had the opportunity to work with a Czech homeopath who had a vulval vaginal um, online homeopathic clinic. So I worked for her and specialized in vulval vaginal issues.
mm,
Very niche, very random.
mm,
But I have lichen sclerosus myself, which I've managed homeopathically. And so it seemed like the right fit to do that kind of work. And then I've been doing that for obviously coming up for 6 years. And now I have my own clinic. And most of the women that I work with, so it's men get it as well, and children. Lichen sclerosus is very particular.
mm,
Most of the people who get it, I discovered had really difficult childhoods.
mm.
And obviously, Eve Stanway in your last one of your
Yeah.
last podcasts. She talked about adverse childhood experiences,
Mm,
and so feeding into what we do as homeopaths is looking at what's happened before. So with adverse childhood experiences, you have an increased risk of chronic disease, especially autoimmune diseases,
mm,
when you're in adulthood.
mm,
Um, and so I was suddenly seeing all of these people, all of these women, oh, and a few of the men that I've treated with toxic relationships around them. And then obviously my own difficult divorce, I became a divorce and breakup coach. But I can't separate the two. I can't
mm.
just be a coach and I can't just be a homeopath. So people will come to me and say, what can you do for, say, low libido? Because they come to me for, perimenopausal support. And we dig deeper. How do you feel about your partner? Well, I actually can't stand him. So, he's a
Oh.
bit of an arse. So it's like, well, you're not going to have good libido. You're not going to have high libido if you think he's an arse. And then that leads into, actually, is your relationship healthy? No.
Mm.
Is there a point in time when maybe for your health and your sanity, leaving that relationship is the best thing? And I don't encourage divorce because
Mm.
it's a flipping nightmare. But if you are considering, divorcing or separating, whatever, the how to do that safely and
Mm.
calmly and protect your health, and so that all of it comes together into sort of one big thing.
Mm.
But what I have to say, so I've got some, very exciting things afoot, where actually separating it into two and it literally just being about divorce
Mm.
didn't sit well for me, because quite a lot, like I said, people have difficulties with their mothers or their
Mm.
siblings, or, and
Yeah.
actually that's the first relationship that you have
Yeah.
often. And so that leads into more likelihood of having a toxic adult intimate relationship. So it's deeper than that.
Yeah.
That was a long ramble, wasn't it? Does that
That's
does that make sense?
fascinating. But
Oh,
it's so true, isn't it?
yeah,
If you have, relationships in your childhood, you learn certain ways of
yeah,
dealing with people that are toxic towards you, whether that be
yeah.
a parent or a sibling or a family member or friend. And of course, you take that with you into your adult life, don't you? And
Well,
you,
and
you
and yes, sorry.
yeah. No, I say, there's an element of assuming that other people are going to react in the same way as
Yes,
people that you grew up with,
yes.
isn't there?
And they don't. And
Mm.
or I actually see quite a lot of it, and I experienced this myself, when you're living with somebody and you suddenly think, oh my goodness, I'm living with my father, or I'm living with my mother, or,
Mm.
when you suddenly think, oh, this isn't okay.
Mm.
Um, if you've had a difficult childhood, that's when it sort of goes, oh my goodness, I'm seeing those patterns, and you're repeating those
Mm.
patterns. And then when you say, no, I'm not prepared to put up with this anymore, then that's when it becomes very difficult, and it can be very desolate. The divorcing, or even cutting contact. If you're cutting contact because you have to with a family member,
Mm.
there always is a point in time when the more they lose control, the harder it becomes. And it's all about how awful you are. And it can feel very alone and very, very bleak at that point
Mm.
in time. Obviously talking
Mm.
about hope.
Mm.
If you have got if you have got support around you, great, where people are saying, that's not okay behavior, but most people don't really know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So when you are, cutting contact with a parent, is goes against society norms.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they
Yeah.
give you a bit of a, oh,
Oh,
really?
yeah. Yeah.
As if there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
You're a horrible person. Whereas actually most of the people I meet who have had to do that, it's for their own sanity, their
Yeah.
own physical health. And the same with when they suddenly say, I don't want to be married anymore, or I don't want
Mm.
to have this, whatever this relationship is that's unhealthy, and I want to move on from that. There is a point in time it becomes very difficult to manage that.
Yeah. It's such a brave thing to do. I mean, people often talk about, oh, you've given up on it, or
Yes.
it's sort of a failure, but it's not at all, is it? It's
Mm,
realizing that, whether it's a marriage or, that kind of relationship, or a parent or family,
mm,
to have the bravery to say, this is, damaging my mental health and possibly my physical health as well.
yeah,
And I'm going to
yeah.
do something about it and look after myself. It's not selfish, is it? It's quite a brave thing to do.
Well, but it's so interesting, the narrative. There's a lot of narrative now about, and really good, raising
Mm.
awareness of perimenopause and menopause,
Mm.
postmenopausal symptoms and things. Um, but there is still a narrative, women of a certain age are
Mm.
more likely to divorce their husbands. And there's still a little bit that we're a bit mad doing that. You know,
Mm.
it's like it's because of our hormones. It's
Mm.
and it's not that actually we don't maybe have those hormones that make us go a bit softer and a bit fluffier. We put up we kind of get to a point of going, I'm not putting up with this anymore in a very empowering way, as opposed to we're mad 50-year-old women leaving our husbands
Yeah.
because we're, you know, burning a bit of a doing a Shirley Valentine, you know. It's not about that. And it's very the common themes I see with people is they instigate divorce and it's then the other person plays the victim.
Mm.
And whereas what's come before that for them to get to the point that they're happy to kind of burn their life down to move on into an unknown of actually probably not having an awful lot of money because that's the
Mm.
statistics, bringing up the children often on their own.
Mm.
Um, and that takes quite a lot of hope, actually, that
Yeah.
things will be better. That there
Yeah.
is like, you know, it's a horrendously long tunnel to get there, but actually they're not prepared to put up with the current situation any longer. And there is going to be light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
people don't support that quite often.
no, I think it's perhaps a bit to do that, the patriarchy
Yes.
of, well, the woman doesn't want me anymore, so there must be something wrong with the woman, you
Yeah.
know. And I think that, a lot of, I went through a big change in everything in sort of my
Mm,
40s and 50s, but mainly because I was in a career I didn't love.
yeah.
I wanted to do something else. I wanted to change things, but it wasn't because of menopause or anything like that. It was just right. This is the right time. I'm old
Yeah.
enough now. I know enough about the world. I know enough about who I am and what I want,
Mm,
and I'm going to just jolly well do it.
yes.
And it's a
Well,
question of that, isn't it? It comes to a
yes.
sort of a brick wall almost point, doesn't it? It's now or never.
Yes.
Mm.
And I think, I mean, I got to 40 and I thought, is this what I want the next 40 years to be
Mm.
like? That's the kind of often there's those milestones, aren't there?
Yeah.
Um, but I also have you heard of the grandma hypothesis to do with explaining
No, do
humans
tell. That
having
sounds fascinating.
menopause? So we're one of very few mammals that actually have a menopause. So we live past our reproductive life. And there are some people who say, well, we would have died in our 40s,
Mm.
however many years ago. But whales also live past their reproductive life.
Mm.
And the females, they have a matriarchal society,
Yeah.
and the female older whales pass on their wisdom to the younger female whales about how to bring up the children and
Yeah.
where to find the best food and all of that. So there is the grandma hypothesis kind of turns the a little bit on its head. We have to age and maybe we need HRT, and I'm not against HRT, to be clear,
Mm.
but that whole we need our hormones, and we do to a certain extent, but the grandma hypothesis just makes it feel very different. And there are some groups who are trying to reclaim the word Crohn, that's
Mm.
less about this like wizened mad old woman again, but actually
Mm.
is it's a healthy term. The
Interesting.
crone, it's the wise old woman, because actually for a very long time women have been deemed hysterical
Yeah.
and a bit mad,
Yeah.
and it's because of our hormones.
Well, the word hysterical comes
Hysteria.
from hyster. Yeah. The,
The womb, yeah,
yeah.
Greek womb,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
This so it's fascinating when you start looking at it.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, the grandma thing, there are so many cultures, particularly in Europe, Spain
Yes.
and Italy, where the grandma, the nonna, is the head of the
Mm,
household, and
yes.
everyone, even the men, do what Nana says.
Yes.
And that there's a real, culture, and Nana lives with the family, and it's all
Yeah.
very,
You're
um,
revered.
yeah, absolutely. And
And I think, yeah,
well, I
go
think
on.
perhaps in this culture, the elderly aren't so much. I don't
Yes.
know quite what's going on in this country,
Mm.
but the
And I
elderly is
think,
seen as,
I want to be very clear, we're not
mm,
discrediting women who have bad um, perimenopausal time,
Mm.
we need our hormones, and there is
Yeah.
definitely a place for HRT, and help with that aspect. But also something that is never talked about is how the adrenal glands take over the production of estrogen.
Mm.
So actually, if we're very stressed, we're focusing on producing stress hormones from our adrenal glands, not estrogen. And so most of the women that I work with who have got hormonal issues in
Mm.
inverted commas, are incredibly stressed, and they're in a vicious cycle, because the more you're stressed, the more you're not producing
Mm.
hormones, and the more you're not producing hormones, the more stressed you are. And so that I find fascinating as well, that
Mm.
that feeds into all of that, with how stress is, as we know, is a huge root cause of everything.
Mm.
And what is that stress about? And
Yeah.
it could be toxic relationships, it could be your job, it could be obviously all sorts of things cause people stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then
I,
it puts everything out, the whole endocrine system out.
yeah. In the Chronicles of Hope, we aim to support young adults who are caring for a
Mm,
parent, and of course, the amount of stress that
yeah.
that can bring on, perhaps without realizing it. And of course, there's the guilt of what, I shouldn't feel stressed because I'm not the ill one.
Yes. Yes.
There's that whole aspect of it as well, isn't there?
And actually, sometimes it's just about meeting people where they are.
Yeah.
Nobody's stress or nobody's trauma is bigger or smaller than the
Yeah.
other person's. It's just your response to stress and mine might be very, very different. Or
Yeah.
what's my trauma and your trauma, very, very different. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's how our body is responding to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And that's all that I do, is meeting people where they actually are, with whatever it is going on for them.
Yeah, yeah, because there's not a hierarchy of trauma, or it's just how
No.
you are. I mean, people say to me, "Oh, I'm not as bad as you, Annie," and I say, "Well,
Yeah.
that's nothing to do with it, really.
No.
I've had my diagnosis. I'm dealing with it. I make myself happy. I'm the happiest
Yeah.
I've ever been." And for people to feel that they're not allowed, or they don't have permission to feel stress or trauma because they're
Yeah.
around people who are, inverted commas, worse off than them,
Yeah.
that's a really bad way to be. You should, have the liberty to actually feel and, deal with the stresses that you have,
Mm.
even though they might not be in, up the hierarchical scale of,
Yeah, because
you know.
some people find,
Mm.
stuck in traffic very
Mm.
stressful, and
Mm.
other people would say, "Really?
Yeah.
That's like, don't be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Don't you know what I'm going through?" And actually, it's just how the body is responding, and
Yeah.
that the body is still having a stress response, if the same if we were meeting a tiger, or,
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
It is. It is fascinating. So you talk about, you mentioned your life, a reflexologist, and
Hmm.
then you moved into homeopathy, didn't you?
Yes.
And then you had sort of quite a big life change, with the divorce.
Yeah.
How did that affect, your work, and how did you move into relationship coaching after that? Or was
Yes.
it? Yeah.
Yes. So that was 10 years ago,
Mm.
when I first, it was sort of, yeah, this time 10 years ago that I started to think, I'm really, this is not right.
Mm.
But I spent a very long time thinking it was me, that I
Right.
was hormonal, I was
Mm.
too sensitive, um, I wasn't grateful enough with the life we had. I made all of those stories up about myself,
Mm.
whereas actually we were not particularly happy.
Mm.
Um, and so yeah, that was 10 years ago. And basically, yeah, I there was a point in time when I thought, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not putting up with this. And saying no felt really empowering,
Mm.
whilst also incredibly difficult to manage, because when everybody's saying, "Oh, really? Oh,
Mm.
you should work on your marriage," when actually
Mm.
you've spent a long time working on your marriage, and nobody really understands what's going on
Mm.
behind closed doors. Um,
Mm.
and so, yes, I think after that, people were coming to me, talking to me, because they were going through their own difficult divorces and knew that I had gone through
Mm.
a lot. I remember somebody once saying to me, it will feel like the twilight zone, but you will get through it. It
Mm.
will, and I always say it's like a messed up game of chess when
Yeah.
some divorces, if they're amicable, are, they're still difficult.
Mm.
If you're divorcing somebody who's determined to make life difficult, and that's the type of people I work with,
Mm.
it's like an ultra marathon with
Yeah.
barbed wire and electric fences,
Yeah.
all of that. It's an
Yeah.
ordeal. So people
Mm.
knew that there was this ordeal going on, and they would come to me for advice. But I could advise them from my own perspective, but I didn't really know how to help them. I could give them homeopathy, which is great, but
Yeah.
there was a limit. Whereas the coaching has allowed me, well, for a start, the coaching I have done is with the Dash charity. So Domestic Abuse Stops Here. So I've done master
Mm.
practitioner training with helping with post-separation abuse,
Ah.
because it doesn't stop when
Mm.
you say I wanted a divorce. In fact,
Mm.
quite often it becomes much worse. For my clients, it becomes, there's
Mm.
the other person is losing control, so they make it as hard as possible.
Yeah.
And having tools to be able to help hold people's hand through that process, and help them see that it's that messed up game of chess that I talked about. They're
Mm.
going, yes, they want 50-50. They'll say they want 50-50 with the children when they've had nothing to do with the children up to this point. And I'm completely on board with people having 50-50 to the children. I'm not saying that at all.
Mm.
Um, it's a tactic for certain people.
Yeah.
So I've got just to be clear, I've got a little girl. If I was to, God forbid, split up with him, I would absolutely want him to have 50-50.
Mm.
So that's where I want, because people go, oh, parents should have 50-50. So
Yeah.
I want to be very clear about that. But it's tactic. I'm going to
Yeah.
use the finances against you. I'm going to use the children against you, and helping people to see that it's a game. And it's like almost a gameplay checklist. They've done this, they've done that. That helps people get through the darkest days
Yeah.
and know that you've just got to get through the game, and that
Yeah.
the game, the rules will change. It's like shifting sand, but it will be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
There will
Yeah.
be brighter things once you've got through this.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, it is, it is a grief, isn't it? It is,
It is.
losing something. Grief isn't just about death, is it? It's about losing something that you thought you had and it's not there anymore. And
Yeah.
I should think there's an awful lot of grief goes on with in the situations that you counsel.
And I think a lot of people feel a huge amount of guilt and shame as well,
Mm.
because they are the ones that have instigated the divorce. So the women
Mm.
I work with, they have instigated the divorce, but they feel terrible for breaking up the relationship.
Mm.
Um, they are grieving, but grieving what they would had hoped it would be.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and for the children, worried about how the children are going to cope with it.
Yeah.
Um, all of that, but they've got to a very desperate point to basically
Yeah.
throw a bomb into their relationship.
Absolutely. I mean, no way is it a light decision, is it? It's probably
No, it's
something
not.
that's been, as you said, it's something you think about. Same with me. You think about it and think about it and think, actually, this isn't sustainable. I can't carry on like this anymore. So
No.
how do you, we talk about hope on this podcast. So
Mm,
how do you deal with, making sure that the clients that you work with maintain an element of hope? How do you deal with that?
yeah. So I actually think, homeopathy is not for everybody. It is deemed a bit of a weird one, and that's absolutely fine. I accept that. I think it's quite weird. But there are homeopathic remedies that can really help give people peace in that situation. They
Mm.
can't change it, but they can get peace, and a little bit of joy. There are remedies to help with joy, but
Mm.
also EFT, emotional freedom technique. It's helping the self-care to get through it when they're in it, and also know, and if once you understand the game of divorcing a difficult person, you can, it helps you take a step back and have, you almost can see the plan. And at the end of the day, we will get through it. There will
Yeah.
be, brighter days ahead. And it's about understanding, helping them understand that they can thrive. They don't have to
Mm.
just survive, they can
Yeah.
thrive,
Yeah.
um, through looking after themselves and making sure they have the right support around them. Because a lot of people will try and help, um, and give helpful suggestions, which isn't technically the case. So it's having the right people around you to buoy you up, and then keep saying it's momentary.
Yeah.
Me saying 10 years ago I was making a decision, that's flown by.
Yeah.
And actually, thriving after that is
Yeah. Yeah.
something to
Yeah.
behold, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because when you are going through something difficult, time almost slows down, doesn't it? And it
Oh,
feels
yeah.
like it's going to be, from anything like, when I got my diagnosis those few weeks, or things like when you're moving house, you feel like this is never going to happen,
Yeah.
and time really slows down. But then afterwards, you can look back and go, actually, it wasn't that long at all. I got
No.
through it. Can't
Yeah.
you? It's,
And I think if you've got a plan, you've got an action plan of
mm,
sorts, and it's having stepping stones. I think
mm,
the, I mean, I mainly work with women, to be
mm,
fair. Like I said, I do some men, but mainly women. Um, but the women will come and completely overwhelmed.
yeah.
And then you're absolutely in it, and it's completely overwhelming, and it's
Mm,
completely dark, and it's just awful.
yeah.
Whereas actually, if you go stepping stones, right, we're just going to do there. If you can get a plan and stepping
Mm,
stones, then that I think can give you hope. It's kind of
yeah.
having clarity,
Yeah.
even if it's, you know, your financial situation isn't what you want it to be, but you can have a plan. A
Yeah.
plan is what gives you something to cling onto in
Yeah.
the darkest days, I think.
Yeah. No, that's so true. A plan gives you hope, doesn't it? It's the way out of the darkness when it just feels like it's completely overwhelming. No, that's really
Because
true.
there's always, there is a tunnel that you've got to go through, and the tunnel can be with everything.
Mm,
Sometimes a tunnel of emotions, and it can take, the tunnel might be huge and you can't see the light,
mm,
but you are still going through a tunnel. You are
yeah.
moving forward,
Going in
and
the right
yeah,
direction. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Does that make sense? That's
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely.
yeah,
And I'm sure people listening to this will go, yeah, Becca, we know what you're talking about here.
yeah,
I can really see this, and that applies to anything, any difficult situation, isn't it?
yeah,
That, if you've got a plan, if you've got, well, let's just get to the next step, and then we'll deal with everything after that at that point. We don't
yes.
have to we don't have to create an end point now.
No,
We
we
can
don't, and
work
we don't
towards it.
need to know what the
Mm.
end is going
Yeah,
to look
yeah,
like.
yeah.
But let's get a plan through whatever it might be. Let's have a
So
plan.
right.
People come to me on the homeopathy side, and they're trying everything. And it's like,
Mm.
okay, let's just like, okay, one step at a
One
time.
at a
Let's see,
time.
because that can be really overwhelming. If you're doing everything and you're taking all the supplements and you're doing, sometimes that's a huge tax on the body. And
Yeah,
let's just stop and work out what's the stages of that plan.
yeah,
I love a
absolutely.
plan.
Oh, I love a plan. Oh,
Oh,
I was called Planny Annie at one point because I just
were you? Do you know what? I can see that.
well, it's good, isn't it? It's good to
It
have,
is.
to-do lists. I've got to-do lists everywhere because I love to see what's coming and, ticking things off. And yes, I've achieved that. And because
But
achievement
also,
is quite a big
it is
thing,
a
isn't it?
it
Yeah.
is
Mm.
it is, but also, maybe having somebody, because if you are a bit of a planner, you might have endless to-do lists. So it's like, okay, let's find what's the priority, like, the top five things to do of that
Yes.
of that plan, or that health goal, or especially,
Yeah.
January, everybody's,
Oh, yeah.
they're
Yeah.
doing this and that and that, and like, okay, let's just, because you're going to crash if you're not careful, you're going to crash.
Yeah. I've even been known to have to-do lists of to-do lists.
Oh gosh. That's the ultimate in
We're getting
planning.
far too complicated then.
Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Excellent. Do you know what? We've come to the end of our time.
Oh,
What a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much, Becca. Now, I always ask my guests if they have a message of hope for my
yeah.
listeners. What would your message be, Becca?
So there are always going to be difficult people. difficult relationships, dark times, but I'm going to say have a plan.
Yeah.
See somebody, have a plan, because you will get through it. Whatever it might be, whether, chronic disease, within reason, obviously, I'm aware, but I've got 3 autoimmune diseases, so they can feel overwhelming. The exhaustion can feel overwhelming, and all you can do is what you can do, and make a plan and do it tomorrow if necessary. So it's okay. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. Brilliant. And say we're advocating plans quite heavily.
Yeah.
But it is very true, isn't it? You know what the next step is. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know anything else. Just the next.
Everything else can be overwhelming, and then that leads to the darkness. But let's just one step in front of the other through that tunnel, and you'll get to the end of it at some point.
Brilliant. Oh, it's been so lovely chatting to you, Becca. Now, if people are interested in what you do and want to get in touch with you, we will put things in the show notes, but tell us where they can find you and get in touch.
Yeah, I'm on all socials. Healing_space for you is my kind of health aspect, and a health clinic that I have got online. And then Divorce Healing Space is my other one. And then I have a very exciting new development coming up that is bloomthroughlife.co.uk.
Oh, how fantastic.
So that will be more about all sorts of toxic relationships and ill health, and helping people thrive through their life, not just survive.
Wonderful. We'll put all that in the show notes.
Thank you.
Yes, but I love the word thrive. You don't just be and exist, you thrive. I love that.
Because I think so much, sorry, but
No,
people talk about you're a survivor of, and I'm not. I think let's thrive.
Yeah.
Let's thrive, and we can thrive through stuff.
Yeah,
it's okay. We can bloom. We can thrive. Yes,
absolutely.
Let's not just survive. That feels like we're hanging on by the skin of our teeth. Let's thrive.
Yeah,
and find ways to thrive.
Thriving, despite my diagnosis, which a lot of people say, "Oh, Annie, how do you cope?" I'm in the here and now, and I'm thriving. And that's what it's all about, because you never know what's going to happen, do you?
Well, no, and honestly, you are the happiest, most vibrant person I know. And you are the epitome of thriving. I love it.
Well, I considered the alternative and thought, no, I'll keep to happy. That's what I like.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Oh, Becca, thank you so much for being a guest with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Chronicles of Hope podcast with me, Annie Bennett. I hope you found inspiration, comfort, or perhaps even a newfound perspective around the meaning of hope. To find out more about the aims of the Chronicles of Hope organisation, please visit thechroniclesofhope.org, where you will find links to our social media accounts and where you will be able to make a much needed and appreciated donation. Thank you.